Four games, three wins, no goals conceded from an opposition player, including in the penalty shootout that saw them become only the fourth African nation ever to reach the quarterfinals of a FIFA World Cup. Morocco, living up to their name, have rocked our worlds and Qatar 2022. Hello and welcome to the Express Sports Pod. This is Game Time, and I'm Rahul Pandey bringing you this week's Listeners Digest with the duo of my Indian Express Sports Desk colleagues Shashank Nair and Namit Kumar. Hello, gents. Welcome aboard the Morocco Express. Batten down the hatches, for this one may be a long ride. Speaking of long rides, it has been a long one for Morocco, longer than probably most expected them to go at this tournament. But watching their performances, you get this impression why they have been able to do that. I mean, the draw against Croatia, the 2-0 win against Belgium, the 2-1 win against Canada, and then beating Spain on penalties 3-0 after the 120 minutes plus added time, which gave us no goals. We cannot term these performances as upsets, probably, right? When we have watched them do what they believe in doing the most, that is the Moroccan strategy at this World Cup. Let's try and simplify all this for our listeners. Namit, where do you want to start with regards to this Morocco Express journey at this World Cup?
Yeah, I think there has been a lot of discussion on Morocco's style of play. But personally, I think that I've kind of enjoyed watching them play. I don't think that it's this negative style of football that most people have been dubbing it to be. So, yeah, I think that Morocco's journey in this World Cup is really important because at most football World Cups, you want the hosts to do well. And this time around, there's a lot of controversy regarding the hosts, and Qatar were really underwhelming in the group stages. But we still needed a team from the Arab world, from the Middle East to do really well. And I think Morocco doing that is a huge achievement. And I think that's why it's been the emotional aspect of their ride to the quarterfinals has been that much better just for that reason.
Yeah, true. And Shashank, there have been this team that you want to back, right? It's not just about the AFCON football viewers backing them, or as Namit mentioned, they've found a home support vibe playing in Qatar. They've always been the favorites in whichever venue they're playing, whichever team they're playing. But there are also very likable characters in this team, right? Right from the manager to the players to all their performers. Just beautiful stories that have come out of this Moroccan group of players that has made them a real neutral's favorite.
I think when you look at some of their top players at the club level and then, see how they've transformed at this national setup, it's something to watch because I don't remember the last time ZH ran after the ball this much at Chelsea. I don't remember them being so ferocious when they did not have the ball. And I think that's one of the characteristics of Morocco at this World Cup that has just been so fun to watch, which is when they don't have possession, the way it's a mix of being really intense on the pitch and being tactically sound. They create a lot of imbalance in the midfield when they're like teams go for mid blocks and low blocks at this World Cup, but they do it better than other teams, and they precisely do it by crowding passing channels. I loved the way that against Spain, for example, they created midfield imbalances against Spain where they were really cutting off Sergio Busquets' passing lines. And once you do that at Spain, it becomes really hard for them to play. It kills the dynamism of their game in some ways. And Morocco really did that well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that these players have really bought into their coach. They've bought into this idea that they can be better than what, they're suggested to be or what people think they should be. Morocco is not supposed to be here in the quarterfinals, but they have done so well that, they're bucking that trend and they're basically saying that we're going to outplay the expectations that have been put on us in any case. And I really, really think that against Portugal, they have a chance considering the way they're playing.
So, for say at this World Cup, Morocco's accumulated XG, expected goals rate, in the 4 matches that they've played has been 1.7, out of which they have been able to score 4 goals. Whereas the opposition that has played against them in these 4 matches has gotten an expected goals rate of 3.38, out of which they have only been able to score 1 goal against Morocco, which was essentially an own goal scored by one of the Moroccan players against Canada in their 2-1 win. So it just goes to show how strong they have been defensively. And it starts from their back line, essentially. It starts from the goalkeeper, Yassine Bono. And Namit, you wrote an interesting piece on Morocco's penalty shootout hero, who has been this solid defensive figure for them at this tournament. What should we know about him and his story, and how come he has been such an essential kingpin in Morocco's defensive line?
I think Bono is he's exactly the kind of player that most people would miss. I mean, I know that he's got a lot of attention now because of his amazing performance in the penalty shootout, but regularly, most people probably would have missed him. If you mention Morocco, you would have mentioned Ziyech, maybe Boufal, maybe Amrabat, and then the defenders. Hakimi is there, Mazraoui is there. But I think what is best about Bono is just his calm presence at the back that's allowing them to, not panic. And I think what was a really polar opposite situation happening in Spain, where it felt like Simon didn't have that same calm presence at the back, and it always felt like when they were playing it out the back, there would be some sort of panic, some sort of mistake. And then when they came for the penalty shootouts, again, Simon didn't look the most comfortable, he didn't look the most confident, and Bono was his body language was just it's just another game for him. And I think that aspect of his personality and that aspect of his ability, that has been developed with all the time he had to spend earning his place in the second division in Spain. He's actually from Canada. He was born in Canada, but his parents were natives of Morocco. And then when they moved back to Morocco, he moved to a local club. And when he was very young, he got picked up. I think he was just about 19, 18 or 19. And he got picked up by Atletico Madrid. And from there, it was supposed to start. The journey was supposed to start. But it didn't, because he first got stuck in the B team at Atletico. Then when he got promoted to the first team, he never really got a chance. And they kept loaning him out to second division teams. And I think that's exactly what the mentality that he developed by earning his place in the Moroccan national team. Now he's at Sevilla. He's one of the best goalkeepers in Spain. And at this tournament, he's certainly been one of the best goalkeepers. And that place he has earned through the dirty work, the grinding work of the second division. And I think that's where that mentality comes from. And it was pretty remarkable to watch because he was totally unfazed by the occasion.
True. And it's an interesting term, the dirty work, the grinding work, because Shashank, I want to move to you on this one. Teams that tend to play with more defensive stability, with more numbers at the back, and hit back on the counter, look to make most of the least amount of possession that they are going to have, especially against a side like Spain. They have to work a lot more harder than, say, teams who are possession based, want to develop their moves bit by bit, pass by pass, and then go forward and hit team. Spain were doing that for most part of their match, because they didn't create that many qualitative chances as one would have thought they would. But you need to work really hard to be the kind of team that Morocco has to be. We've seen the kind of injury toll that has taken after 4 matches. But do you think that these kind of teams who emphasize more on their defensive identity, on their sturdiness at the back, are more likelier to be stronger, or more likelier perhaps to give you results when it comes to tournament football?
So I think it specifically comes down to this tournament. I think we have seen quite a lot of teams being very compact in their midfield and allowing the opposition teams to have their fair share of the wing. And what we have seen is that there are certain teams that do it certain ways to break down that very compact midfield. What Morocco do really well, though, that most other teams that have a good mid block or a low block don't do is that when the opposition team is in the ball with the wings and are going to put a cross in, their midfield does a really good job of coming back and being very close to their defensive line. So you'll see that there are teams that, like for example, Netherlands. Netherlands are really good at creating space between the midfield and the defense of their opposition when they're putting in a cutback. And you saw that against the USA game where Adams was supposed to mark Memphis Depay for the first goal, but he was nowhere near Depay, and Depay had an open field to just place the ball in. What Morocco do really well is they create imbalances in the midfield. So Tarap, for example, was always present whenever there was a Spain cutback coming in, and cutbacks have been the best way at this World Cup where teams have managed to get the ball into the box to their own players. So Morocco not only do the first part of overloading their midfield very well, the second part, which other teams, top teams would do, but maybe the not so top teams are, failing at this quarterfinals as we have seen. What they're doing is they're so good at managing and organizing their structure that they always have a man guarding for that cutback coming in. They always are crowding passing channels. So in the first place, those cutbacks are really hard to come by. And Spain in the group stage, where I think the best team when it came to cutbacks, I think they were making 48.7 of their passes, 48.7% of their passes were grounded passes that were cutting back into the box to a player of their own. And that was just how good Morocco were set up tactically. This wasn't just let's put 8 people at the back and hope to God that nothing happens. They really are very, very tactically fine tuned. I would say better than most other teams, which is why in the last 7 to 8 games they've only conceded one goal. And it's like once you really go deep into why they are doing this, it's not just that they're not superficially defending. There is more to it than what there is detail in every bit of their defending, and that's been very apparent at this World Cup.
Yeah, and also it's important when you have, of course, defensive stability must also go hand in hand with the attacking play if you are to succeed in scoring goals. And they've been able to do that via their wing players. Of course, the combinations have come into play a lot. Hakimi and Ziyech, both on that right wing. If you look at the other wing as well, Soufiane Buffon really looked an imposing figure in terms of the attacking play. One wouldn't necessarily forget that bit of feint move that he made. I think it was up against Marcus Llorente. Was a nice bit of movement, of course, in a match that was highlighted more so by Morocco's defensive stability. But you need those sort of strong figures up ahead in terms of attacking play as well to succeed. Against Belgium, they hit back on the counter in the second goal. Namit, who have been the players and what have been the avenues that they have chosen in terms of Morocco scoring goals at this tournament? Because come a match against Portugal, and I'm sure we'll do the prediction bit a little later, but you'll need to somehow make the most of the chances that you have. They've just showed their class up front, that they have just shown the kind of players they have in terms of creating chances. Who are the players that Morocco have been relying more so in this competition when it comes to scoring goals?
So I think when it comes to the way Morocco play, it's a little bit like the defense is going hand in hand with the attack. It's not this, like Shashank was mentioning, it's not this lopsided way of playing where their only eye is on keeping everything out of their area. They actually play a higher line than a normal low block. They play something resembling a mid block, which means that when they actually do break the ball, when they do win those balls, when they do close down those passing channels, when they do clear those cutbacks, they are slightly higher up the pitch, especially their wingers, which allows them to kind of hit on the transition. And that's why those two wingers that you mentioned, Ziyech on one side and Boufal on the other, both are absolutely key if they want to create. Ziyech, and the kind of player that he is that he is the chance creator. He's got an amazing left foot. People that watch Chelsea play or people that watch the Premier League probably know that already. That he is his ability to cut in on he plays on the right, and his ability to cut in on his left foot and play passes and crosses that most, I would say 99% of players can't. It gives them a huge boost. And Boufal is a different kind of player on the left wing, because what he can do is he can use that little bit of footwork and the inventive trickery to get past players and then open up space for someone like En-Nesyri, who's the striker, to just go into. So probably the best chances that they have is when they break at pace from the wings, which is why those two players and that balance, as you just mentioned, Rahul, that balance that they have on the right with Hakimi and Ziyech, and on the left with Mazraoui and Boufal, that is absolutely crucial. But on top of that, they've got Ziyech for set pieces, which is also a very, very crucial way in which they can score goals and create goals. So if this is not, we're not exactly seeing a team that is one dimensional. They're not. They can do different kinds of things. And especially in how they play in their midfield, the way they close things down and the way they actually push teams back into their own half to try to create, because there's such little space in the Moroccan half that the midfield pushes the opposition's best players into their own half. Like against Spain, for example, Pedri often was playing as a de facto right back, because that's the only place where he could find space to actually do anything. And the same against Belgium, when De Bruyne was in that area, because he could not find any space to do anything. And if they can utilize that and then press higher up the pitch and catch these players off on the ball with the wingers they've got, they can cause problems for sure.
There's also another exciting aspect about this Morocco team and their journey at the FIFA World Cup, which you have mentioned in another one of your pieces for the Indian Express. The fact that this Morocco FIFA World Cup run is a migration success story. A lot of these players are not born or brought up in Morocco. And it's pretty important for teams such as them to utilize and look up to players outside of their own footballing ecosystems in contemporary sport, right? When the gap between the European teams is just so far up ahead, then probably most of the CONMEBOL teams, most of the teams from AFC, most of the teams from AFCON, it's really important now for these teams to then look up for talents to make up for their national teams outside of their own country. And that's something Morocco have done pretty well, haven't they?
Yeah, I think like national identity is much more complex now than it was maybe like 25 years ago. So a lot of these players, in fact, I would say like if France's 2018 World Cup win is an immigration success story, Morocco's wins or whatever their run in 2022 is kind of like a migration success story, because a lot of these players, their parents migrated away from Morocco, and a lot of them have not lived in Morocco past the age of 3, 4, 5. But they still identify with Morocco as their national identity, which is very interesting. And even though like a player like Hakimi, for example, he was in Spain since the age of 4, I think. And he was in Real Madrid's academy for a long time. And you looked at that Spain team yesterday, and the player that was isolated most was Marcos Llorente at right back. And that's where Hakimi would have been playing if he stayed with Spain. And he still chose Morocco. So I think national identity has become really complex. It's not as simple as, okay, if I'm going to get a call up with an international team, I'll just go there. Or if the most successful team wants me, I'll go there. It's become more complex. And I think for international sports teams in that scenario, it's changing. The aspect of it is changing. And how these players are welcomed back home is also a kind of a sign of a lot of Moroccans welcoming outsiders. Because technically Hakimi or Amrabat or all of these guys are outsiders. They barely ever lived in Morocco. So it's interesting. And I think that this is definitely going to show itself. It's already showing itself, but more and more as you see second generation immigrants and their stories and how they choose to represent which country they choose to. So it's interesting, and it'll start showing itself more in all sports, not just in football, but you'll see a huge impact of this on Olympic sports as well.
Truly, truly beautiful story. And I'm sure if Morocco go on to become that first African nation to play in a FIFA World Cup semi-final, that will, of course, make it even more delightful for a whole lot of countries and their footballing ecosystems and their futures. Just as last week we were talking about Japan, they've sort of laid a blueprint for other teams to follow. But yeah, speaking of which, let's discuss a bit about the quarterfinal that is coming up between Morocco and Portugal. Portugal, of course, were a very different team, a fairly different team than they looked in the group stages in that round of 16 match against Switzerland. Really went all guns blazing up against the opposition, scored 6 goals past them. Goncalo Ramos was, of course, the big highlight of that match in place of Cristiano Ronaldo in the team. Got a hat trick, first player to do so in a World Cup knockout, I think, since 1990. So that is big. How strong would you rate Morocco to go on and win this one up against Portugal, Shashank?
I think it depends on how Portugal set up. If they play Ronaldo, then I feel like it'll be one of those games where, it could be decided by one goal and there won't be a lot of goals in there. But I think that if Portugal play the way they played against Switzerland in the setup that they do over there, I think what will be interesting is that it will be yet another really new setup that Morocco will have to face at this World Cup. If you look at the way Belgium played, if you look at the way Spain played, if you look at the way Croatia played, they're all really different teams in the way they're set up. And Morocco's tactics have really stood out against all of them. They have managed to tweak tiny little things in each of those games to, suit their style of play and then make sure that, there aren't any goals that are going to be leaked. I'm still trying to wonder. I'm thinking about how they will be able to stop Portugal, and I just feel like if Portugal play with Ramos as their shadow striker, shadow number 9, what you want to call it, I think it'll be really, really tough because just the quality that Portugal have in that area with Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, these are really, really good players. And I think they are really capable of breaking down defenses in the final third. And no Ronaldo means that they actually will be really mobile and they'll be able to get the ball in the final third at certain times and be able to attack at that point. So we're going to see the Moroccans go up against slightly different type of football than they have been used to this World Cup, I think. And I think it depends on whether Ronaldo plays or not. That's my take on it.
I think it's dependent on two things. The first, so basically, I don't think that it's much of a dilemma for Portugal. They're not going to play Ronaldo. It makes no sense. They look much better without him, and the way they won and how Ramos performed and everything, I don't think that Ronaldo's going to play. But I think what it depends on first is, will the emotions have gotten the better of Morocco? Will they not be able to execute their game plan with the same amount of intensity, same amount of concentration, same amount of focus because of the occasion of being in this quarterfinal, what's on the line, and how emotional their previous victory was? And the second thing, a little more technical, would be how Portugal's inside forwards play. So Bruno Fernandes and João Felix are the two that usually play, and they were really, really good against Switzerland. They were helped by the fact that the striker in front of them was a little more mobile and dropped deeper at times. If Morocco can keep up what they have been able to do very successfully so far, which is relegate that threat in between the lines, and both Bruno and Felix like to play in between the lines. And if they can push them deeper and then maybe isolate the striker, I don't see Portugal getting too many clear-cut chances to score, which would really elevate Morocco's chances. So I think that's crucial, but we'll have to see if they're up for it or not.
Well, they certainly have been a team to watch out for at this World Cup, and we'll be keeping our eyes on them. Post this quarterfinal, of course, we'll be talking about what happens next in the World Cup in our next edition of Express Sports Pod. Thank you so much, gents, for joining us this time around. Thank you so much to our producer Shashank in the background, and thanks to all our listeners. If you want to watch or hear or read more about whatever's happening at the FIFA World Cup, you know the drill. Log on to theindianexpress.com. Thank you so much.
You were listening to Express Sports by The Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Abhishek Kumar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.